Around 2 p.m. on July 10, 2017, the calm routine of Boon Tat Street in downtown Singapore was broken by a sudden cry for help. Office workers spilling out from lunch, shoppers browsing boutiques, tourists strolling past the shophouses. They all froze as a man staggered out of a cafe, clutching his abdomen. His shirt was already blooming with red, the blood spreading in grotesque shapes across the fabric. His face was pale, his steps clumsy, his eyes darting desperately at the people around him. "Help me," he gasped before falling to his knees. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then, as some instinctively stepped forward, another voice cut through the chaos. A deep, deliberate voice, belonging to an elderly man who walked out behind him. His words were chilling. "Don't come any closer. Don't help him. This man is a scoundrel. He deserves to die." The words struck the crowd like a slap. Singapore is one of the safest countries in the world. Violence in broad daylight, in front of dozens of witnesses, is almost unthinkable. But here was an old man, standing calmly with a bloodied knife still in his hand, declaring his victim's guilt as if he were both judge and executioner. Some bystanders dialed the police, others filmed. But the old man beat them to it. He calmly pulled out his own phone, called the authorities himself, and reported what he had done. Then, astonishingly, he set the knife down on a nearby chair, sat down and waited, as if this had all been inevitable. Minutes later, police arrived. The victim, 38-year-old Spencer Sanjay Tupenny, was loaded into an ambulance, but he died before reaching the hospital. The killer, 69-year-old businessman Tan Nam Seng, was taken into custody without resistance. At first, the scene seemed like a shocking act of random violence. An old man snapping, killing someone in the middle of the city. But very quickly, Singapore discovered this was no random crime. The victim was not a stranger. He was Tan's own son-in-law. And the man with the knife was not just any elderly Singaporean. He was one of the country's most prominent shipping tycoons, once celebrated for building a business empire from nothing. Tan's story began far from Singapore's gleaming towers. Born in 1948 in Fujian, China, he migrated at age 10. His family had little money, and he grew up working long hours at the docks. He never had the chance for a formal education, but he possessed a sharp eye for opportunity and a will to climb higher. By his late 20s, he founded TYCOON Shipping, starting with a single vessel. Over the decades, he expanded into real estate, nightlife, logistics. He became wealthy, respected, admired. His name appeared in the business press, a rags-to-riches tale Singaporeans love. But success came with sorrow. His wife died young, leaving Tan to raise 3 daughters alone. He never remarried. Friends said he poured his heart into his girls, vowing to give them the best. Among them, his eldest Scylla became his pride. Bright, ambitious, deeply loyal, she worked beside him until she rose to vice director of the family company. Tan often told friends he saw in her the future of his empire. Yet his devotion also bred worry. Scylla, even into her 30s, remained single. Tan feared she might never find someone worthy. And then, without warning, she told him she was dating a junior employee at his company, Spencer Tupenny. Spencer was charismatic, tall, half Chinese and half Indian. But in Tan's eyes, he was unsuitable. Spencer came from a modest family, still lived with his parents in government flats, and had already gone through a divorce. Scylla, by contrast, was an heiress, vice director of a flourishing business. To Tan, the pairing looked like a disaster. But Scylla was in love. Spencer was attentive, charming, persistent. Against Tan's doubts, she stood firm, and gradually Tan relented. In 2004, Scylla and Spencer married in a lavish ceremony, entirely paid for by Tan himself. He gifted them a house, showered them with support. It looked like a fairy tale. The tycoon's daughter and the ambitious young man starting a new chapter together. At first, Spencer seemed to embrace the role. He moved into management at TYCOON Shipping, eventually taking over as vice director. Profits rose. Tan, though still uneasy, began to hope his daughter had chosen well. The couple had 3 children. On the surface, everything looked perfect, but appearances were deceiving. Spencer's life transformed almost overnight. Luxury replaced modesty. Relatives moved into the couple's home, enjoying Scylla's generosity. In the office, he began replacing longtime employees with his own family members. Money started flowing into shell companies, and his ambition grew sharper, more dangerous. By 2011, Scylla uncovered his affairs. He begged forgiveness, claiming he wanted to preserve the family for the children. She agreed reluctantly, hoping stability mattered more. But the betrayal did not stop. Spencer carried on with mistresses, and in a staggering act of cruelty, fathered 2 children with another woman through in vitro fertilization, while pressuring Scylla to abort one of her own pregnancies. Meanwhile, the company's foundations began to crack. Deals faltered, money drained. Tan, still trying to steady the ship, was persuaded by Spencer to restructure, to sell shares. Slowly, without realizing it, Tan ceded power. By 2016, Spencer had maneuvered himself into majority ownership. Tan had been outplayed in his own empire. The final betrayal came in 2017. Scylla confided to her father that Spencer had not only continued his affairs, but had secretly recorded her at her most vulnerable moments, sobbing, breaking down, and intended to use the footage in court to paint her as unstable, unfit to keep custody of their children. For Tan, who had sacrificed everything for family, this was unbearable. His empire stolen, his daughter, humiliated, his grandchildren threatened. On July 10, 2017, Tan went to confront Spencer at the office. Spencer avoided him. Hours later, Tan saw him by chance at a cafe on Boon Tat Street, laughing casually as though nothing weighed on him. Something inside Tan broke. He returned to his office, retrieved a knife, walked back, and approached his son-in-law. Witnesses heard him say only one sentence: "You've gone too far." Then he stabbed him 3 times. Spencer stumbled out into the street, clutching his stomach, blood pouring. Onlookers screamed, phones went up, chaos erupted. But Tan did not run. Instead, he blocked people from helping. He set the knife down, pulled out a chair, and called the police himself. He also called his daughter Scylla. His words to her were simple: "I've killed him. Don't cry. I'm old and I'm not afraid of prison. What's done is done." His arrest was quiet. He went willingly. His trial, delayed until 2020, captivated Singapore. In court, Tan admitted what he had done, but insisted it had not been premeditated. Psychiatric reports revealed he was suffering from major depression, triggered by years of betrayal and loss. The prosecution sought 12 years. The defense pleaded for leniency, pointing to his age, his health, his devotion to family. In September 2020, the court handed down its verdict: 8.5 years in prison. The sentence shocked some. Too light, critics argued, for a daylight killing. But others saw it as merciful, a recognition of a broken man who had snapped after enduring too much. By December 2023, Tan was quietly released after serving 6.5 years. He was 75 years old, and in a twist that seemed almost Shakespearean, Spencer's elaborate schemes collapsed after his death. Because he and Scylla had never finalized their divorce, all his assets, including his majority stake in TNS Shipping, reverted legally back to her. The empire Tan had built, which he thought had been stolen forever, returned to his family. The murder of Spencer Tupenny remains one of Singapore's most haunting cases, not because of its brutality alone, but because of its layers: betrayal, ambition, obsession, and finally an old man's breaking point. Tan was no random killer. He was a father who had built his life on loyalty, family, and sacrifice, only to watch it unravel at the hands of the man he had once welcomed into his home. Was Tan Nam Seng a murderer blinded by rage, or a father pushed past endurance by betrayal? Perhaps both. His story leaves us with an uneasy question: how far would any of us go to protect the people we love when we believe all hope is gone? What do you think? Share your thoughts below. I'll be reading them all. And if you want more true crime stories from across Asia, subscribe to Crimnest. Every week we uncover cases of love, obsession, and betrayal that spiral into tragedy. Until next time, stay safe.